The following is a short-lived research project on the Slenderman. There are woodcuts dating back to the 16th century in Germany, featuring a tall, disfigured man with only white spheres where his eyes should be. They call him Der Grossman, or the tall man. He was said to be a fairy who lived in the Black Forest. Bad children who crept into the woods at night would be chased by this slender man, and he wouldn't leave them alone until he caught them, or until the child confessed to their parents what they had done. Even then, there's a chilling account from an old journal dated around 1702. It's translated from German, so some words might be inaccurate. My child Lars, he's gone, taken from his bed. The only thing we found was a scrap of black clothing. It feels like cotton, but softer, thicker. Lars came into my bedroom yesterday, screaming at the top of his lungs that the angel is outside. I asked him what he was talking about, and he told me some nonsense fairy story about Der Grossman. He said he went into the groves by our village and found one of my cows dead, hanging from a tree. I thought nothing of it at first, but now he's gone. We must find Lars. My family must leave before we are killed. I'm sorry, my son. I should have listened. May God forgive me. There's another story, this one from a book. When Slenderman started showing up in online forums, something about it felt familiar, and I'm an amateur folklorist. I have a few sources lying around. Eventually, I found something in W.K. McNeil's Ghost Stories of the American South. Most of the stories in that book are transcripts of recordings the folklorist made, but McNeil compiled and annotates them. It's a really handy book. Anyway, this story appears in the book's 7th section, Other Supernatural Creatures. When I was younger, a cousin of mine came to live with us. He was older than me and my sisters, maybe 16 or 17. We were the only folks that left in the world, really. He was the awfulest liar you ever knew. Anything he told you, a lie, almost. I liked him all right. We slept in the loft during the summer because it was cooler up there. In the winters, we'd sleep on the floor closer to the stove. My sisters had their own room. One night, my cousin wakes me up, punches me in the shoulder. It's summer, so we're in the loft, and my first thought's to punch him back. I ain't happy being woken up, but before I can say anything, he puts his hands over my mouth. Even though it's dark, I can tell he's scared. Listen, he says. So I do. I hear it. Scratching. Like something on the roof. And the roof's right over our heads, mind you, because we're in the loft. I'll tell him it's just a raccoon. No, he says. I heard it before I woke you up. It's like footsteps. Like someone's walking up there. I wasn't buying it. Told you he's a liar. So I go back to sleep. Next day, he tries to tell Pop about it, and Pop ain't having it either. But later, we're at supper. Pop sends my little sister Lily to fetch water from the pump out back. After a while, we hear Lily scream. Ma's up first, then Pop, and the rest of us all stay at the table. We didn't want to get in trouble. Soon enough, we hear Ma and Pop shout too, and me and John run out to help. All they find is this water pail she carried out. There's no sign of Lily. My cousin John's just standing there, pointing across the field. It's the man walking yonder, he says. And no one's listened to him, but he keeps saying it. It's the man walking yonder. I look out over that field, and the sun's setting. The whole field's lit up orange. There's a row of black trees at the edge of the woods. And I swear, one of the trees, it moved. Like a man walking away. But it couldn't have been a man. No man's that tall. Or that skinny. The Pop takes us inside. He locks all the doors, gets his rifle. We wait there all night. Ma's crying the whole time. Next morning, we take the wagon into town. Told folks what happened, but nothing came of it. John ran off a few weeks later. We moved closer to the mill where Pop was working. Even now, I still can't look at the trees at sunset. Especially not on windy days, when they sway back and forth. Like a man walking away. Some people say he's a myth, an urban legend, a made-up story meant to scare people. However, I've seen him. I've seen what he's capable of. I've seen how frightening he really is. And I never want to see him again. I was around the age of 11 and I lived in the country with my mom, dad, and 8-year-old sister. The entire town was surrounded by forests, and not very many people lived in it. It was a simple town. There were no big business chains or anything like that. All the shops were family-owned. In fact, our family owned a small bakery that was actually the downstairs level of our home. My sister Abigail and I would always go to the tiny park by the edge of the woods to play with the other children that lived in the town. There weren't many, so we all knew each other. Sometimes my sister would go to the park by herself while I did my homework. One day she came into my room while I was working on some math problems. "Sarah," she said to me excitedly, "I met someone new at the park. You should come meet him." I turned to her with a smile. "I can't, Abby," I said. "Mom said I couldn't go out and play until my homework was finished and my room was clean." "But he's not going to be there all day," said Abby. "He's probably already gone." "I'm sure he'll come play another day," I said, turning back to my work. "I'll meet him next time." I had quite a bit of homework for the next couple of days. Abby would always try to get me to play in the park with her new friend, who she didn't seem to know the name of, but I was too busy. And finally, it was Saturday. I didn't have anything to do. We went to the park together and played on the seesaw. "Where's your new friend?" I asked her. "I guess he's not here yet," she replied. I was beginning to wonder if this friend was imaginary, and after about 15 minutes, a younger kid came up to us and tugged on Abby's sleeve. "Abby," he said, "the tall stranger's back. Let's go play with him." Abby hopped off the seesaw and urged me to follow. I felt uneasy at hearing the boy call his friend the tall stranger. All the same, my curiosity was too great, and I followed. All the children headed into the forest and gathered around a dark tree. I stood by my sister and gasped, seeing that it wasn't a tree at all, but an unnaturally tall man. He had to be 8 or 9 feet tall, and he was so thin I thought the wind was going to blow him away. He was wearing a black business suit, and his arms were too long to be proportional. I squinted, trying to see his chalk-white face, but for some reason I couldn't make it out. It was as if there was no face at all. Something about the man unnerved me. Part of me was enticed to come closer, but the other part of me was screaming and telling me to run away. There was a faint ringing in my ears. The children circled around him. For whatever reason, they were more drawn to him than I was. I wondered if it had anything to do with the fact that I was older than all of them by a few years. They reached up to him, touching his thin, bony white hands. Abby was trying to push through the other kids so that she could touch the man as well. I looked at her face. Her eyes seemed almost hypnotized, as if the man's presence was luring her into some kind of trap. I looked back up to the man and gasped, seeing how multiple tentacle-like arms were coming from him, reaching slowly to the children, and they cooed softly, reaching their hands up excitedly. The ringing in my ears was now painfully loud. I screamed, I covered them, feeling dazed. My mind was foggy, my vision was blurred. Abby was still trying to get closer to the man, but without thinking, I grabbed her hand and ran as quickly out of the woods as I could. I didn't even look back. Once back in the park, Abby yanked her arm away from me, practically sobbing. "Why did you do that?" she yelled. "I wanted to play with the tall stranger." "Abby," I said, panting, that thing is bad. I don't even know what it is. Please don't ever go near it again." "You can't make me," Abby screamed at me. "I'll tell Mom not to let you go," I said. "I'll say there's a creepy man always hanging around the park. She won't let us go anymore." "Why don't you want to come here anymore?" said Abby. "I don't want to be around that thing," I replied. And I took her hand, leading her home. I told my mom about a stranger in the park, leaving out the details of how unnatural he was. But she didn't seem to think anything of it. She said it was probably just someone's father that we didn't know or something. I didn't want to argue, I just had to make sure Abby didn't go to the park myself. Mom soon changed her mind, however. The next day on the news, there was a report of 3 missing children. They were all siblings, and Abby and I had just seen them at the park the day before, gazing up at that creature in the forest, along with the other children. According to the news story, they had gone to the park and had never returned home. Their parents were distraught. There was no sign of a struggle. They seemed to have simply vanished. After seeing the story, Mom decided that the stranger I had told her about was probably not to be trusted, and she forbade us to go to the park without an adult. The disappearances didn't stop other kids from going to the park, apparently. Each day, more children were disappearing, and again, there was no evidence as to where they could have gone. We wondered why parents kept letting their kids go, but then I thought, what if they were going without their parents knowing? So I had to be careful. I needed to keep an eye on Abby. A week went by, and Abby and I were the only children left in the whole town. The police were searching everywhere, but they hadn't come even close to solving the case. It all felt so unrealistic, like a dream. How could a dozen or so kids go missing without a trace? Strange things started to happen to Abby as the week rolled on. She started getting out of bed in the middle of the night, standing next to it, just staring blankly at the wall and not moving for hours. Then she'd lay and she'd sleep once more. When I caught her doing this, I told her the next morning, and she said she couldn't remember. Abby also stopped eating as much. Mom was getting worried and urged her to eat, but she always said that she wasn't hungry. She was drawing these strange pictures obsessively, as if she was being controlled by something unseen. The pictures all had a very messy circle with a scribbled X drawn over it. They said things like, "seize me" and "run," and other disturbing phrases and words. Sometimes I would watch her draw these pictures, her eyes glassy, her hands moving abnormally fast across the paper. And finally, one night, I heard her get out of bed again. I stood up, I went into the hall, and I saw her leaving her room. This was a first. All the other times, she just stood like a statue next to her bed. I tried calling to her, but she didn't respond. I followed her as she left the house and out into the night. It was cold, slightly windy, and neither of us had our shoes on. I walked closely behind her, but it seemed like she was unaware that I was even there. I even tapped on her shoulder, but she completely ignored me. And then I saw that we were headed into the park. "Abby," I whispered urgently, "we shouldn't be here. Let's go home." She didn't answer. I tried to grab her arm and pull her back, but for some odd reason, she seemed stronger than me. She continued to walk through the park and into the forest. I didn't want to go in there, but I wasn't going to leave Abby alone. Our surroundings got darker as we headed deeper into the woods. I followed Abby much farther into the trees than before when we had last seen that tall figure. Again, I tried to tell her to come home with me, but she stayed silent. There was this very faint ringing in my ears again. Further and further we walked until finally we came to an area lit by moonlight where the trees were less dense. Abby stopped walking. I stood next to her, hugging her arm and urging her to turn around. The ringing in my ears started growing louder and my head began to hurt. I closed my eyes, holding my head in pain as the high-pitched whine became too loud to withstand, and suddenly it stopped. I opened my eyes, looking up slowly. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. He was standing right in front of me, towering above me like some kind of living tree. I looked to Abby and I saw her staring up at him, her eyes blank as if she was in a trance. "Abby!" I gasped. My voice was hoarse. "Please, let's go! Run!" Still, she didn't move. I grabbed her shoulders and shook her. "Abby!" She slowly tilted her head to the side, staring at me. It was eerie. The look she was giving me, still she remained silent. Just then I saw this thin, tentacle-like hand wrap around Abby's throat, and she was ripped out of my grasp. I screamed, watching as she was lifted into the air. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I couldn't look away. Abby was struggling, choking from the man's grip. He seemed to be staring at her with his non-existent face. A fierce wind blew through the trees for a mere second, and then everything was still and silent. Almost too silent. Abby was limp. Her head hanging down, I couldn't see her face. The man slowly sat her down on the forest floor, and she stood next to him, seeming to be conscious. I wanted to approach her, but I was still glued to the spot. Nothing prepared me for what happened next. Abby slowly lifted her head and stared at me. I gasped, horrified at her face. Her skin was pallid, clammy-looking, her eyes sunken and blank, sleepless shadows beneath her eyelids, and then she began to cry blood. She wasn't sobbing or even moving in any way. She stood there, unblinking, blood running from her eyes down her cheeks. I felt like I was going to be sick. Then I was suddenly aware of many glowing eyes watching us, and I saw the shadows of children in the distance. They disappeared as soon as I noticed them. I looked back to Abby and saw her body fading into darkness, becoming nothing but a silhouette of her former self. And then she was gone. I felt tears running down my face, but I couldn't move a muscle or make a sound. I stared up at the tall, no-faced man, and he began to walk away, finally disappearing into the trees. I stood there for maybe an hour before I was able to move. I fell to my knees, and I sobbed, continuously looking around to see if Abby would come back. I called out for her, but I knew that she was gone. I lay on the wet and leafy ground, shivering and crying. Hours later, a group of policemen found me in the forest. She and Mom had called the police once she noticed Abby and I weren't in our beds. The men had to lift me off the ground and carry me home. When we got to my house, they questioned me about my sister and where she had gone. "The man," I said, "a tall, slender man in a black suit, took her and the other children away." "Can you describe the man?" said one of the policemen. "He was tall as a tree and skinnier than I am," I explained, shaking from the memory of the creature. "His skin was white, his arms were too long, and he had no face. At one point he had more than 2 arms, but they looked like tentacles." The policemen looked at each other, and I wasn't sure if they believed me or not. Shortly after the incident, Mom started packing up the house. The police still searched for Abby and the other missing children, and they found nothing. We ended up moving very far away from that town and into the city. She hoped it would be safer, and I still don't know if anyone believed me about the Slender Man. Years had gone by, and I was in college. I moved away from my home. I got an apartment of my own. I never told her, but I continued to see the Slenderman periodically. I saw him outside in the streets at night, and I even saw him outside my house a few times. Sometimes I had the strangest feeling that he was in my room when I was asleep, watching me. I knew I couldn't run from it, but I didn't want Mom around. I didn't know what he wanted. All I knew is that I didn't want him around anymore. And finally, my sightings of him decreased in number. I can't explain why or how, but I was relieved. However, it didn't chase away the nightmares I had every night. Always the same, my sister's bloody face fading into darkness. Some say he's a myth or an urban legend, or just a story. Some says he eats children that he abducts, and others say he simply kills them. Only I know the truth. Many people claim to have seen him, but I know they haven't. The Slenderman doesn't eat children from what I saw. I can't exactly explain what he does with them. It's almost like he steals their souls, he seals them away in some other dimension. And I witnessed it. People ask me if I've heard of the Slenderman. You know what I say? No. Why does the color blue look blue? Why does a rose smell sweet? What is happiness? What is pain? Why can the taste of a fine wine summon unpleasant memories? And truth be told, I'd have been perfectly content to die not knowing these things. Would have been a mercy. You've all heard the words, "There are fates worse than death," at least once. Until now, I can't say I truly understood their gravity. Honestly, I can't say that any of us do. Until it's too late. We romanticize this immaterial ghost between our ears, a thing that's as subjective as we think it isn't, right? It's all we got. It's all we are. So we guard it fiercely to the bitter end. We create stories of life after death. The loving gods, benevolent guardian angels, we do so to appease our subconscious knowledge of the horrifying truth. That there is no soul, that there is no afterlife. Eternity marches on without you because you are ultimately nothing more than an inelegant, not biological wiring. And when that knot of wires is locked away in your skull, toiling away in the dark and informed only by your senses, it's safe to believe in angels. It's safe to believe a God will deliver you from evil. But when they put that fucking thing in my head, that barnacle on my sanity, I lost that privilege. I don't know who I am anymore. My innermost thoughts, my feelings are all fake as this room I keep walking up in. I never knew that a brief life and a swift death could be such a blessing, but as with everything else, we don't truly appreciate what we have until it's taken away. It started with what was, at the time, one of the happiest moments of my life. It was my granddaughter's 4th birthday party, my little sweet pea. We held it at a public park on a beautiful summer day. We had clowns, ponies, bouncy house, colorful balloons as far as the eye could see. It may have been a bit overboard for a 4-year-old, but I gladly paid for it. I was getting older. I was often sick. I could feel my own mortality, and I just wanted to spoil my granddaughter while I still had the chance. The whole gesture was rendered meaningless the moment she blew out the candles and looked up to meet my eyes. I was so happy for her, so charmed by that little cherub face of hers that I didn't notice that the right half of my face had gone numb and started to sag. And when she saw it, she screamed. Her scream was the last thing that I could remember before waking up on a stretcher, being wheeled into the godforsaken hospital room. If I had known what they were about to do to me, I would have never consented, but my daughter held power of attorney. I wasn't in possession of my senses. It was all she could do to save my life. And I don't blame her for this. She couldn't have known. Nanomachine neurosurgery. It was an experimental method of treatment. They said that it would revolutionize psychiatry and neurobiology forever, and I hated it from the moment that it first spoke to me. The word spoke's even the accurate descriptor. It was just a small nodule of polished chrome attached to my left temple, but it operated inside my brain. Made me hear, made me see things from within. Digital, fabricated illusions for the sake of communication. And having something so close to the source of your consciousness is more disturbing than you could possibly imagine. It can invade your soul, corrupt the very essence of who you are. You like to hope that your mind's one of the things definitely under your control. To lose that certainty is to question what it even means to have self. The memory's hazy, but I remember them calling me a hero, being the first volunteer, praising my supposed bravery as they put that surgical drill to my skull. As if I had a choice. And that's when it started. That horrifying descent into the torturous oblivion. Jackie boy, it sounded so familiar the way that the thing said it. Memories of childhood, spending all day playing in the forest with a friend. A nameless, faceless friend whom I loved like a brother, but the ghost of fondness came with a sense of guilt. What kind of friend forgets their best friend's name? And yet, something was wrong. Somehow I knew that it was safer to forget, that I had forgotten for a good reason. It shook me to my core. Each time I went under, I could feel the scratching and tinkering of the nanites in my head. And the more they fidgeted with my synapses, the more I could feel something dark rising to the surface of my subconscious, something forgotten, something terrifying. A repressed memory clawing its way back with every synaptic bridge repaired, connections that were deliberately broken to seal it away in the first place. I only wish that I could have realized what was happening before it was too late. I might have said something to the nurse, changing my IV drip as I stirred awake, but I was much too distracted by her chillingly unfamiliar face. Unfamiliar in a way that I had only ever experienced once. Somewhere deep in the memories that begged to remain forgotten. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. But I saw no face, just a confounding, nonsensical smudge where a face should be. Who was that? Have I met her before? Why can't I remember her face? And it showed to me a slideshow of nightmares behind my very eyelids, a procession of faces pulled from my own memory, cascading faces that had belonged to my loved ones not 24 hours before, but had each not been accompanied by a name, they would have been strangers. My blood ran cold as they scrolled by in a blur, each without a face that I could understand. My late mother, my daughter, my sweet Piana. I was reduced to tears of frustration as I failed to recognize each one. I had never felt so alone in my life. It was all I could do to keep a fake smile on my face for my baby girl's sake when they came to visit. "That's a silly hat, Grandpa," she'd say to me with a smile. "Hats are supposed to go on top of your head." I tried to muster up a laugh, though I knew it would never compare to the genuine laugh that she loved. Well, the silly hat's gonna make you old Grandpa all better, so don't worry your pretty little head. I looked up and flashed my best fake smile at the stranger I used to call my daughter. She wasn't so easily reassured. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. And to my shame, I felt nothing. "Here, Grandpa, I saved the last piece of cake for you. I guarded it all night because I know you like chocolate." She passed me a Tupperware container with her biggest, "aren't you proud of me" grin. My mother nodded at me with a silent smile, unable to hold back the tears any longer, and I understood the message. Yeah, she was saying to me, even on her special day, she could only think of you. It touched my heart. I smiled my first genuine smile of the night. Thank you, baby girl. Well, Grandpa's getting sleepy. The words came out of my mouth, but I wasn't saying them. You two better get on home so you can hurry up and come see me tomorrow, I laughed. That son of a bitch made me laugh while I was screaming inside. He was standing behind her, tall and sickly thin, and in that same black suit I remember so well. For the longest time during my childhood, a horrible demon haunted my nightmares, but I couldn't remember its face, and now I understood why. He had no face to remember. He held me prisoner in my own mind while he made me watch my granddaughter's precious smile melt away from her skull along with her nose and her eyes through some twisted illusion that he made her a faceless little freak just like him. Phantom of a little girl I loved. He stole her from me while she was still alive, while I was still alive to witness it. I tried calling out to do anything I could to get their attention. I watched helplessly as that monster made me wish them a good night, all smiles and optimistic cheer. He shut me off from him and the rest of the world. Forever. You. I remember you. David. The camping trip, we were just kids. You took him. You took him away. He flooded my mind with images of his intent, tilting his head whimsically at me like a vindictive child burning ants with a magnifying glass, tendrils of shadow bursting from behind him, smothering the hospital room's fluorescent lights. He could control my every move, my every thought. He could make me see what he wanted me to see, let me feel endless pain. I could resist him, but eventually he'd break me. The nanites, they made it easy. It all came rushing in so fast, a horrible memory long since forgotten, a dreadful future yet to come. I'd be his slave. I'd walk hand in hand with my little sweet pea. I'd wear the mask of his followers. Same mask David's father wore that night. Standing in the same dark forest meadow where I watched it happen. I'd hand her over to him just as David's father had done. Just get out of here, Jackie boy. It'll all be right. Those were his last words to me. And he punctuated them with the familiar nickname that he had used for me since the day we first met. He wasn't worried in the least. He trusted his father completely, knew that only good would come of being given to the White King, as his father referred to the faceless monstrosity standing before me. I was too young back then to understand what a cult was, or to know what would come of it. And I would have never imagined the mass tribunals David told me about in worship of this demon. So when he invited me along one night, and that thing appeared to claim its sacrifice, I ran for my life. I pleaded for David to follow, but he wouldn't listen. Even as I ran blindly through the woods, I could feel its malicious will piercing my heart. It never let me escape. Sooner or later, it would come for me again, and my childhood mind repressed it all for the sake of my sanity. No, you won't use me for this. By some miraculous force of will, I managed to take control of my body again, and just long enough to grip the nanosurgeon node and violently tear it from my skull. I felt the shock of it kill me. I felt my life slip away as I tumbled to the cold floor covered in gore, and then, as if nothing had happened, I woke up again on the hospital bed. The morning after the first nanite injection. And I've woken here at this very moment more times than I can count. I woke here every time I tear the hub from my head, right after it kills me. You see, he's taken away my sense of time, my grip of reality, and I despair when I realize that he'll continue to let me suffer these final hours again and again and again and again until I submit. For all I know, he's already taken control. Try as I might to escape the clutches of this parasite in my head. I fear that I have already done his will. I fear that this is all just an illusion to keep me prisoner, and that I have already delivered Anna to her fate. And in time, some unfathomable eternity from now, I suspect I'll even forget about that. When nothing's real anymore because the color blue isn't really blue. Like the last remnants of what I used to be, it's all in my head. And it'll all fade away with me. From what I've read in forums, memes, other sites debating Slenderman, he operates on the power of belief and feeds on fear. As for the operator symbol, for fear of my safety, I won't draw it or even display it here. There are many theories about what it means. Some say Slenderman can teleport when you look at him, symbols burned in the minds of his victims. Some say it's his face, the circle being his head, the X representing his featureless features. Others say it's a window, the one that he uses to peer into our world. Now, this quote is one that stuck with me. Perhaps it doesn't actually mean anything. You assign meaning to it because you are familiar with the mythos. Seeing it makes you think of Slenderman, and since Slenderman operates on belief, it becomes a kind of mimetic thought weapon. I'm done researching, and I can't stand this feeling. I feel paranoid. I feel like I'm being watched. This was a short-lived research project. I don't want to know anymore. If what they say is true, that he exists based on belief, then my research has provoked him. It all started because I was watching Marble Hornets after someone mentioned it on Facebook, and that piqued my curiosity, and it triggered something. Something that I think I've been trying really hard to forget. I was sleeping. At the time, I shared a bunk bed with my little brother. I was on the bottom, and I woke up late one night, and everyone else in the house was asleep. I felt wrong. Like I was being watched. And it felt like he was in the hallway. So being a dumb kid, I looked. And I wish I hadn't. There was something tall and dark standing there, just staring. I couldn't see the face, it was too dark, but the silhouette, it was tall, it was thin, motionless. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. And then it took a step forward. And I blacked out. When I came to, not much time had passed, but he was gone. I had no idea who or what Slenderman was at the time, so I thought maybe it was a ghost. But I know I wasn't dreaming. Everything felt too real. The fear, the choking, blacking out. One second I was terrified and trying to scream. The next, I was staring at the top bunk again. The next morning I told my mom. She told me it was just a bad dream. Watching those videos, though, it brought it all back. And now I want to bury that memory again, because if Slenderman lives on belief and fear, then remembering this, that might bring him back. I wish I could say that this was just like some creepypasta, some sleep-deprived teen hopped up on monsters and memes wrote out for the internet. I wish I could say that I'm just telling a story, but I can't. Because everything I've said is true, and honestly, I don't care if you believe me, I just need to get it out. Slenderman is real. I've seen him. And I'll leave you with this one piece of advice. If you've seen him, or if you're foolish enough to go looking, don't. I got lucky, I forgot. But others may not. So I'll leave you with this. Slenderman is real. Don't go looking for him, and if you do see him, forget you ever did. Because those who stare into the abyss eventually find the abyss staring back. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video or for listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. Once again, my book is available on Amazon. It is the Creepypasta Collections Volume 1 and Volume 2. They're always available if you guys want to check those out. Some of my favorite authors that I've worked with over my career are published in this book. I've curated all of it as well as written the foreword. I hope you guys enjoy it. Check it out. It's in the link in the description down below if you ever want to find out more. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who supports me over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. I cannot thank you guys enough. Thank you guys so much for being supporters. That goes for everybody who was down in the description, as well as AcidSystem, BallarmsTheRat, Blake Rattler, Mendoza, Brenna, BrimstonePandemonium, Caltuna, Chainsmoker Dealer, ChicagoHitman, CoryxKenshin, Cronut508, CrusaderChocobo, CursepoxPrimarch, Dakota Best, Poulsen, Dante Kinkade, Kraus, Ellie Hutmire, Enchanted Buns, Estebean, Gemma, HIDive, nephew, Jerry, Hour Minute Seconds Time, Jay Keems, Jedis Pet, Jordan Humble, King Crab, Mr. Marcus Splits, Old Penguin, Peaceful Buddha, Psychomel, Red Shadowcat, Remember the Sun, Rinku Star, Salty Surprise, Samara Line, Seclude, Simba's Bloody Mojo, Sky Harbor, Smiley the Psychotic, Sullyman, Tali Sue, the Chavez Brothers. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and sweet dreams.